Hello. I'm Martha Burgess Novak, and we are going to talk about all sorts of things today. This is Real Talk, and we called it that because we are talking about all sorts of aspects of spirituality in our day-to-day lives. So, we are doing that today, and I thought that we'd start the discussion with a discussion of silence. You know, we say silence is golden. How many times have we heard that since we were kids, huh? What does that mean? I think it means silence is valuable. And we're going to talk about why it is, because silence is, I'm not talking about just not talking. Now, I do believe in this world that all of us overtalk. But more than that, I think that silence is valuable for many, many spiritual reasons. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to go through a list that I've been contemplating in just a moment. We are delighted to be with you today. If you have any comments, questions, anything like that, by all means, do call us. Our call-in number, because we are live, is 347-850-1647. We are also, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, we're also on blogtalkradio.com. And you can absolutely check out all of our old programs. We have, gosh, I don't know how many. I would imagine there are at least 75 posted. Some of them are active call-ins, some of them are lectures on various subjects, but they're free, and they're there to support you, certainly, on your journey. And help your understanding, because one of the things I realized on my journey was that I didn't see certain things. This is an esoteric world, and our understanding comes with our journey, believe it or not. So if you are on that, I think this is probably going to help you interpret the world a little better. Okay, let's do a prayer. I always have to start out there to get myself where I need to be to talk to you. And then we'll launch into our subject for today. Keep in mind, you don't have to just call about this subject. It can be about anything. Okay? All right, here we go. Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are and all everything is in this world, we are enormously grateful to be here, to open ourselves, to see, hear, sense, and know what you would have us do as we open to the truth that lies in your enlightenment. And we now open ourselves to this. We also open ourselves to say, in all surrender, that we know nothing. For it is the you through us and through all things that know everything. We open ourselves to that information and to be that channel in the world, hoping to add value and contribution wherever we go. We thank you, dear God, for all of this. We say this prayer now in your name and in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of each and every person listening to the show or seeing the show. We thank you so much, and so it is. Amen. I am going to warn all of you that I am in a beautiful spot up in the mountains today. And being in a beautiful spot up in the mountains, well, hello. Sometimes we lose reception. We did yesterday, right in the middle of a class I was teaching remotely. So we will hope for the best today and that we will be able to continue. Now, I want to talk about two kinds of silence. There are two kinds of silence to me. There's one that leads to listening, and there's one that leads to then hearing, and that leads to understanding. But there's another kind of silence that is shut down and doesn't lead to anything. Obviously, the more spiritual, the one that contains more growth, the one that is indeed the open system. You know, we talk about in our other teachings the open system and the closed system. Open system has a lot of interaction with its environment. Closed system has very little. So in the closed system, the closed mind, if you will, there's not a lot that can happen to you. That's the good news and the bad news. You interpret that from the ego child's mind as being safe, but you can't go anywhere. All the goodness and graciousness in this world cannot come to you. You can't deal with it. You can't contribute and give in turn. So we're going to talk about today the first listening experience, the one that leads to the silence that leads to listening, that leads to hearing, that leads to understanding. There's certainly, we would all say, a lot to learn in silence. We'd all say that. And yet we really do overtalk as a world. I've been looking at the news lately, and what's going on right now is so much politically. And our president is fond of tweets. I'm also looking at all the Harvey Weinstein things that are going on, and how everybody's jumping on the bandwagon, and everybody has to say something about it. In my opinion, I think we have too much talk in the world. I think that we need to say our opinion, but not every time. Not every time. So I'd like to start with talking about listening, because silence, and you're going to hear me come back around to silence. Silence is a place. It's actually a state of being. It is, no matter what is going on the outside, it's where you are coming from on the inside. We're going to talk about more concerning this and give you some tips as well. But when we're talking about listening, it is coming from that place of silence. Okay. One of the reasons silence and listening are so important is that you are not in a reactive place when you are there. Now, I want to talk about reactive places. I want to talk about being reactive. What I mean by that is you learned when you were very young, you had two templates in how to be. Your mom and your dad, or whoever your guardians were. Okay? Not only do we have that, and not only is that confusing enough, we actually always have a fantasy mother and a fantasy dad. We sometimes have a fantasy us and a fantasy family. We may have a fantasy brother and sister. The fact is, it starts getting psychologically very confusing. And to heal, we have to address all of that and much more, including what the beliefs were generationally in our family. And you may say, oh, we can't do that because we don't know that. No, you don't know that, but your energy knows that. And any good energy worker tunes into that to find out what you really believe. It's interesting because as you grow, as you change, as you become more aware, you start picking up these things on a deep psychological level yourself. You start saying, oh my God, I really do believe that. I would never have known that I believe that. And it starts coming out of you, and there is your healing, because you have to be aware of it before you can own it, before you can surrender it to God. And what do I mean by that? Do I mean you have to run down to your local church and surrender it to God? That is actually not what I mean. Because God is not an outside God. God is an inside God. The one you can use is in you. It's all you are. Our egos get in the way and adulterates this wonderful energy coming through us. But nevertheless, God is an inside God. I say to all my listeners, you can't have my God. You can't have the church's God. You can't have nature's God. All those gods and more are part of the great oneness of God. So everything's God. But the one you can use to make your life better is the one you are. Now, all of us in our Judeo-Christian teachings have learned that there is an outside God. We have surmised this outside God. And that's just not the God you use. We also have learned that you don't use God, that God uses you. I'm here to say I don't think that's right. I think those things both are true. And I think we make our way in the world and we grow in consciousness by using this energy correctly. Now, when you only have your mom and your dad as a template, what happens is if you don't like either one of them, or you like one of them, or you're afraid of one of them, or whatever is your particular story, you bug from one person to the other in life when you grow up, because we move away from what we don't like that reminds us of what we don't like, even subconsciously, and we move to and embrace what we do like, you see. I think of a person that I know. This was not, by the way, a client of mine, but a person that I know whose father was alcoholic. Her mother was very, very perceived as very mean and the villain of the bunch. Not warm, not fuzzy. Well, hell, she was married to an alcoholic. How warm and fuzzy can you be, right? But she didn't understand that when she was this little girl. And she embraced her dad. Her dad, while he made a mess of every relationship he was ever in, was nice to his 4-year-old child. Shortly thereafter, he died. I think he died when she was about 6. And so she's been looking for her father ever since. So she has brought alcoholics in. She's brought people that look great on the surface, and they are just marvelous. But they're not real, because her father in her mind was not real. Now, that's a reactive response. You see, we react to liking something or not liking something based on our old patterning before we were 8 years old, much of it, from the time we were in the womb. And that sounds fantastic to some, and it may be fantastic. It is to me. However, you've got to understand that your mother was communicating with you while you were in the womb through chemicals. So if she was frightened, if she was angry, if she was anything, those chemicals come into you as the baby in the womb. Now, what happens here is you don't understand these chemicals, but these chemicals give you certain emotions, certain feelings, okay? And it's only when you come out of the womb and you start living your life 1 to 8 years old, or birth to 8 years old, that you all of a sudden start putting stories and words and scenarios to those feelings. Hence, all of a sudden you've got some issues, right? Good. Keep in mind that I don't happen to think that issues are a bad thing. I think they kept you alive. I think any child that does not create issues is not a very flexible child, and they end up a lot of times getting ill. Now, that's no criticism. That's saying that those of you, and that's most of you, that lived, that are listening to a show like this to get over your issues, those issues served you to make sense of your world. And you have to make sense of your world to survive. That's all I'm saying. Now, your job is not survival anymore, because you have survived. Your job is consciousness, is being more, is contributing to the world. It's knowing who God is as you, is learning how to be that energy. So when we are reactive, we're not working from the higher energy, because we have a higher energy and we've got a lower energy. The lower energy, and this is not a judgment call, this is just the lower frequencies of you. The lower energy is the egoic child's mind. The ego creates the egoic child's mind to understand the world. It's charged with keeping you alive and safe by making sense of your world. You see? Okay. You've got a higher self. And this higher self is the global perspective. This does not come along until you are well into adulthood. Because the truth is, your brain doesn't even develop all the way until you are in your 20s. We've got to have every part of you developed before you can start understanding things in a global perspective. And that is the advantage of consciousness when you keep going, because that's marvelous. You can keep going, you can keep growing. It doesn't end. Reactivity is the energy of the egoic child's mind. This is where you react. You don't even think a lot of time. You just react. You see somebody that in a conscious or subconscious way reminds you of your mean old mom. Wow. You go. You don't even listen to them. And they may have something important to say to you. You embrace, in the case of this old friend of mine, you embrace the alcoholic father, even though he is not good for you now. And everybody that comes along that in some way reminds you of him gets embraced. Again, that's reactive energy. Now, the silence that we're talking about is not in reactive energy. The silence that we're talking about is in the higher energy. We're going to talk about exactly what that means, how to get there. But you're going to have to get there by knowing yourself. I once had a man that I worked with for only one time. And when I told him, we just have to be willing to go back and get this pain. It's not going to kill you. You've got to prove to yourself it's not going to kill you. We have to talk about a few things. That doesn't mean you have to relive anything. This is a misconception about consciousness, that you have to relive something. You don't have to relive anything. You just have to be willing to talk about it, willing to surrender it, willing to be finished with it. I never saw him again. He just said no. He couldn't do it. That makes me very sad, because there are many people that have made this journey. You're making it now. I certainly made it. I will continue to make it. Most people I know have made this. All my clients have made it. It's not killed anybody. And everybody says their lives are much, much better. Coming out of reactive energy into an energy that is more spiritual. And this is the place that you want to listen from. Now, the advantage, of course, is what we talked about, is that you're not reactive. But number two, listening and the silence that promotes really good listening is the first step to really hearing. I think of a study years ago that I read about. And I don't know where this came from. It was one of the big universities, as I recall. And it was a study on what people really wanted when they were upset. Everybody wanted to be heard. Heard. Everybody wanted to be heard. If you were having a problem at work, you want to be heard. Your ideas need to be heard. If you're having a fight with your spouse, you want to be heard. All right? Everybody wants to be heard. But if everybody's talking, nobody's being heard. You see, you've got listening that is a passive form, and you've got hearing that is an active form. And before you can understand, you have to hear. I thought that that was a very, very interesting study. So listening to someone is step one. And of course, listening from the silence is essential. Number three, believe it or not, listening from this place of silence is suspending your need to control. Oh man, all of us are trying to control in one way or another. Seriously, everybody does. We've got two kinds of control too, I should tell you that. One of the kinds of control is very overt. And one is very covert. Somebody doesn't look like they're controlling, but they are controlling everything. So all of us control. We might as well admit it now. We're all controlling until we learn not to, until we learn that we're actually safe. And we don't need to do that anymore. And listening, really listening from this place of silence, is suspending your need to control, because in this place of silence, there is not any label or judgment. There's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, no wrong, there's no your side and mine. There's just silence and listening. So to listen really well to the potential that you're capable of listening, you've got to suspend your need to control and give it up for a little while. Now, you can give it up permanently, and you can give it up just for right now. Of course, I think one of the really important things in consciousness is that we give up control permanently. We give up control to the ascended God we are. We allow a more global and spiritual experience of ourselves to take place. Number 4, silence and the listening that comes from silence. It's not about fixing things. I remember a story, and if my friend is listening, she's now out west, but she was the marketing director of a big Fortune 500, actually Fortune 1000 company. And I worked with her, and I worked with her whole department as a business coach. Well, I had one of her very good employees come to me, terribly upset, wanted to certainly have my confidence and my ear, and I said, that's great. She said every time she approached this executive, and she wanted so to contribute to this company, she wanted so to tell her an idea, right? My friend immediately did this. And she never did feel heard. Well, when I approached this business head, I said, what's going on there? She said, oh, I'm thinking about whether it's going to work or not. I'm thinking about whether we can use it or not. I'm not shooting down her idea. And the interesting thing is I got these women together, and we talked about this, because the only way that anybody ever feels heard is for you to stay with them. The only way anyone feels listened to is for you to keep your energy on them. I think of another experience. I could make a good living just doing what I'm talking about right now, and have, by the way. But I think of a lawyer. I was doing an open enrollment seminar, and this dear lawyer, sweet as he could be, heard me talking about this, and came over, and he had actually tears in his eyes on the break. And he said, I now understand what my secretary did and said to me. I said, well, what happened? He said, it was very upsetting. He said she just marched in one day. He thought he had a perfectly good relationship with her, but she marched in one day. She threw all these briefs on his desk. She said, you're a son of a bitch, and I quit. And she walked out. He was so upset. And I said, well, what is it that you learned that you did? And he said, well, I never looked up from the computer if I was working on something to see her. I never acknowledged her. I never, put my energy on her when she came to the door. I was always in my head thinking about what I was doing. And she never felt important. She never felt listened to. And she never felt heard. I said, well, that's a good thing to know now. So that won't happen again, right? Yeah. People need to feel like you are listening. So that isn't running ahead to try to fix the problem. You'll have plenty of time to do that after you finish listening. You see, there's a place of energy. I've been seeing energy since I was a little girl, and I hope you can see it now. Right now, my energy is actually on you. But now it's not. Now I have my energy in what I call the A-B position above the body. It's about 6 inches above the body. We do several things here. We judge, we think, we analyze, and we do all sorts of things here. Sometimes I'll do a series just on this. But right now, I want you to realize that this is a place that you can be very misinterpreted. It's a place of thinking ahead, of disengagement, of doing something else other than, and certainly judgment, other than listening. And for these two people that I've just told you about, the business executive and the lawyer, they weren't criticizing, they weren't judging these people, but they felt judged. Because when their mothers and fathers went to this place, they were criticizing, they were judging, you see? Okay. So number 5, this is leading us into number 5, and that is this place of coming from silence into that listening experience doesn't contain any judgment. Now, if you're trying to listen from your ego and your ego child's mind, you just can't wait to talk back. You're not listening. You're not suspending everything. You're just there to listen. No judgment. It's a blank, lovely blank page. And you're going to create something good out of it once you've heard this other person and once they've heard you. You see? Nothing is good here, or bad, or right, or wrong. It doesn't have a label. You know, I think I'll go there. I think our mothers and fathers' imprecise language kind of messed us up here. Good, bad, right, wrong, all that kind of stuff. Here's what I want to say about that. If you don't clean your room as a little kid, okay, let's say that. You didn't clean your room. Well, I think a really good mother and father, aware and conscious mother and father, comes to you and says, darling, you didn't clean your room. I want you to know that's a bit neglectful. And the reason is you've got a lot of nice stuff and it should be put away in nice places. You should respect what you have, you know? But what does a harried and busy mother or father do? We say, you are so bad for not doing that. You go in there and you clean that room. You are a bad kid when you do this. All of a sudden, just not cleaning your room that day becomes a judgment of your morality, really. All of a sudden you're bad, instead of you're just a kid that didn't clean his room. You forgot you'd rather do something else that day. You're a kid. You see? Parents would, again, put all sorts of judgments on things. But these things that shouldn't be a moral judgment all of a sudden become a moral judgment. Not cleaning your room isn't that important. You're not lazy. You're not dumb. See, the moral judgments are what you keep with you for the rest of your life. They're much heavier. It isn't that your parents necessarily meant a moral judgment, or if they did, they got the moral judgment on them inappropriately. So we spend our lives judging ourselves, saying we're bad, working against being bad, instead of just relaxing as who we are. You understand that? Parents mix those things up. And we're free when we realize that. Because those words that are moral judgments are extremely damaging and untrue. Now, I often do classes on truthfulness, and we'll unearth lies like this. Like I didn't clean my room, I didn't make my bed, I didn't do well on my homework. Whatever you didn't do, what'd your parents say about that, if you can even remember? The damaging things you don't even remember. You took on these moral judgments and made them your own, like being bad. And the truth is, you just forgot to make your bed. Okay. Number 6. Listening from the silence. The finest listening is done from this place. Now let's talk about this place. It is a place of quiet peace. It is a deep level of God where you are okay, no matter what is being said or done on the surface. You see, and I don't know quite how to show you this. I didn't draw anything, and you ought to be glad about that, because I can't draw worth a darn. But here's what I want you to realize. There are various stratas of things. There's stratas of energy. You understand? Stratas of energy. When we are very unaware, we're up here at the top. We're up here at the top, and we're just oblivious to things. We don't know all this richness that's inside of us. Our potential, if you will, is certainly an undeveloped potential, an undeveloped lovingness that's there. We are the undeveloped whole. And I'm describing our childhoods, of course. Through the years, and particularly when you work on yourself, you move through these stratas of energy. And you find, on the deepest levels, that there is a place of stillness, of silence, of God that is ever abiding. It's very peaceful, where you know God's there in the chaos as well as the order. You know that things are working out, and they're always working out for your good, even if it hurts like hell. I think that this place of stillness and of silence is really important for another reason. I watch the spiritual community, particularly, I have noticed for years that there are all sorts of spiritual communities out there. And you know what? I don't fault any of them, because if something makes you a better person, if it allows you to believe in something more than the here and now, I'm all for it. But I also want to set something straight as we're talking right now, and that is this. We run around admiring people who channel. And I'm going to say something pretty shocking to you. You've been channeling since you came out of the womb. Yeah. You're either channeling the absence of God and those beliefs from the ego child's mind, or you're channeling the highest self and that kind of love. we are nothing but God, but we are nothing but God in the low frequencies and the high frequencies. See, everything in the world is God. That's why we're still arguing about God. What do you have to compare it to? Nothing. But one of the things that confuses us is there are low energy experiences of God. For example, all the fear-based stuff is that. Okay? Your rage, your fear, your anxiety, your jealousy. Yeah, lower range, but still God. And there is the ascended God, which is the fullness of God. That's God too. Really pure, unconditional love, altruism, and all the other wonderful, beneficent things of God, like divine inspiration and creativity and those things. Now, you're either working from the lower frequencies or the higher frequencies. And if you've been doing this work for a while, you're probably doing a little bit of both. In my work with people, I want people to see that they are in the lower frequencies and in the higher frequencies. I want them to see the difference. And I want them to see that they get different results back from being these two things, these two aspects of themselves. I've noticed for years that when people come out in the ego child's mind with a fear-based thing, they're not the authority in their life. I got real tickled. I was talking to a client the other day, and she was trying to say no to someone. I don't remember what it was about. Something business related. And she goes about her little passive no way because she's still very much the child. And they just ran right over her like she didn't say anything because she wasn't the authority. Let me tell you, when I mean no, I mean no. And I laugh in front of a group of people when we're talking about this, when I'm in front of my corporate or my school that I teach what I do too. And I say, would you rather pick a fight with me, or I'll choose somebody else that's not quite into his or her authority? And they'll always go and want to pick a fight with somebody else. Once in a while they'll say, I would rather pick a fight with you because I know you'll work it out. You see? Okay. Guys, this is not about me. What I am saying, dears, is this is an important part of you. We can be afraid, or we can live in the fullness of God, but you're channeling one or the other or both at various times in your life. And of course, the spiritual experience, the consciousness experience, the journey to self, and by the way, that journey to self is to the ascended God you are. You can call it whatever you want. That journey this is made possible. These two selves of you makes that journey possible. If you were just born the ascended God, you are that aspect of you that you are, and you were nothing but that. It would be Christmas every day, wouldn't it? There would be no place to go. You wouldn't learn anything. But we all start as the ego child's mind. Now we've got a place to go. Now we have a place to go. It's a marvelous journey, quite frankly, this inner journey, because it's all about you. It's all about you. And you say, I get 2 hours a week. At least that's what it is in our thing. Each session is 2 hours long. We really dig down. And people say, 2 hours a week, all for me, all for me. Yeah, really interesting stuff, fascinating. Yeah, it is. But here's what the real interesting thing is. You find you, and you also find everyone in the world. This belonging that humankind so needs. That's why we align to so many things that are not in our best interest ultimately, right? Groups where we can express our anger because they're an angry group. We want to align with our alcoholic father. We want to align because we want to belong, right? Well, you already do belong. Most people just don't know it yet because they haven't made the journey down through these levels. To the peace, to the silence, to the channel that you are as love. I assure you that's who you are. You know, it's interesting because this isn't for everyone. It really isn't. I remember, and this was not too long ago, there was another study. And this study was, I wrote about it in my book, The Life You Want. The study is mentioned in here. But in that study, they asked people to come in off the street to participate. And they put people in a room by themselves. There's nothing on the walls. There's nothing to look at. There's nothing. It's just a chair and a little clicker, a button. Now, if they press that button, they'll get a shock. And they genuinely get a shock. Excuse me, my throat's getting a little froggy. So, the instructor told them that they needed to stay in the room, sit there, and all they need to do was be there for 15 minutes, thinking their own thoughts. But if they can't stand it, they can push the button and it will shock them. Do you know that most people push that button? Most people could not be alone with their own thoughts. For whatever reason, more men push the button than women. But it's very important that you make your peace with yourself, that you access this level of silence where there is no judgment of yourself, where you know that God is working for you, where you can hear what those messages are that God has for you. Very important. We must learn to be alone with our thoughts. All the more reason to work on ourselves, huh? You have to learn to embrace, here's a word that everybody struggles with, humanness. No surprise, but humanness. Yes, you'll say, yeah, I'm human. What's there to embrace? Well, everything that you have done, your sins that you feel of omission or commission, all came out of that, your humanness. And here's the irony. Until you embrace your entire humanness, you don't see the perfection of your whole life. And you don't know that your divinity, this ascended God that you are, is in it. It's in it. Your divinity is in your humanness. Wow, really? Yeah. You can search out there all you want, but it's not going to do anything, because the real journey and where it is hidden. Here's the esoteric truth. Your divinity is hidden in your humanness, and you've got to learn to embrace that and make your peace with it and put your arms around it. Only then do you have the choice to be something more. You see, we have to own things. I mean, let's make it real. Next door neighbor over there, I can't go into their garage and take things out of their garage and sell them to you. You know why? They're not mine to do that with. They're not mine. Something has to be mine for me to sell that to you, right? Well, guys, this whole thing about healing and getting over yourself and your childhood experiences, it's one thing to realize them. It's another thing completely to own them and say, you know what? I did this. I'm responsible for this. And I don't want to do this again. So I give it to the ascended God I am. And let that energy transform into more knowledge, more awareness, and more options so that I don't do the same thing again. I had a woman I hope I can remember this. I had a woman this week. Oh, it was really, really interesting too, because I want you to notice what's missing when I tell you this story. So be listening, the extrasensory ears. She complains every week that she is enormously resentful. She's extremely resentful. And what is she resentful of? She waited 20 years for her husband, who was married to another person, and her husband kept promising that he would leave the other person and marry her. He didn't for 20 years, but she waited. Second, her father was very rich, and he gave her a lot of money, threw money at her, took care of her every need. Her husband does not make that much money. She's the breadwinner. She's angry about that. Her father is now dead. In her fantasy, she wanted this man to be her father. Third thing. She's really, really angry at her family of origin. They did not treat her well. Other than her father doting on her, nobody did. Nobody liked her. Nobody saw anything special in her. They saw special things in each other, but not in her. What have I left out? I'm asking you that. So she wants to get rid of her resentment. What is she leaving out? I told her, I can't get rid of your resentment because you won't own that you had a hand in almost all of that. Certainly not when you were a little kid and you were mistreated, but you have the opportunity now to put that down and decide to really be somebody who just really, in truth and in reality, is different from that child. Not in a reactive way, not in an overcompensating way, but because you put it down. But the thing that's missing in those other two stories, the thing that's missing is that she's not taking responsibility, that she waited 20 years, and that she married this man and didn't look at him well enough to know that she was going to need to be the breadwinner. Now, I'm not saying anything about this. I'm not criticizing one person in this story. I'm saying that she heard that and she said, oh my word, you're right, I'm not taking responsibility for any of this. And I said, I can't get rid of your resentment until you take responsibility, because your resentment is about none of that being healed. You want to be angry. Gives you a sense of power. Gives the child a sense of power, but you're not the child anymore. And if you've got things to do and places to go, you got to put the story down, and you've got to take responsibility for it first. Now, that's only done, by the way, in deeper levels of consciousness where the silence is. We are enormously privileged to be made up of all of these levels. It's a marvelous journey. When you go on this journey, you go to self. You find out that God is all you are. You go to God. You're able to use the energy of God wisely. You think more globally. You see, you in essence have melded with the mind of God. So you are not now still the child and wanting it the way the child wants it. You see, we all want it the way we want it. And we want it in our time frame. And we're in fantasy about it. And by God, what's wrong with that mean old God? Or we interpret it and say, well, God doesn't care about our daily lives, huh? None of that's true. The fact is that we're in the child's mind. And the child's mind's on a higher level. You see, it's a shallower level than where you're going for the silence, for the melding with the mind of God. We've got to go through these levels. Now, how do you go through these levels? There are many people that do this work, but I'm going to tell you the way I do this work. And my clients and my healers do this work. I have a school. If you are interested in learning about our program, by all means, find me on our website, which is www.marthaburgess, Burgess, Novak, Novak, .net. Sorry, it's a .net, not a .com. You will find people that I have trained, that I have all the confidence in the world, and you will find me. I have found in my work that unless one is following a path that God tells me to follow, we don't heal. If we just stay in the physical realm without addressing the other bodies, you have 4 bodies: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. The spiritual body being the energetic body. And it is the body that, by the way, is all the other bodies as well. This is why when the physical body dies and the mental body and the emotional body and the physical body die, the emotional body continues, you see. We have to address all these bodies. So what I do is I listen, I hear you, I help you with your patterns. Thank you, I love you too. I help you with your patterns, but we follow a path of going from one body to the other. Now, I may stay 5 times in the emotional body to pick up things, and then we'll swing over to the physical body and pick that up, and swing back to the emotional body, and then we have an adjustment to make in the spiritual body, in the energetic body. What kind of things? Well, I don't know. There are all sorts of things that tear the energy field, or we understand energetically in an erroneous way, and we have to make those adjustments. That way, one heals. We go on this, if you will, a journey of a gyre that is how you formed egoically. And we get rid of those every week. And every time, every week, your system of the egoic structure, the egoic child's mind structure, gets weaker. We're putting the reactivity, the pain and the suffering of that child to rest. We're listening. And so what happens ultimately is you're down on a deeper level, and you wake up and you go, oh my word, nothing's looked like what I thought it looked like at all. I may not be explaining it very well. I hope I am. Because the truth is, thank you, Lisa. It's so good to be back on the air again with all of you all. And I'm so glad that this is working in our own house. This thrills me. I got real tickled. The wind blew yesterday and the internet went down. So there, it's just the way it is up in the mountains. We follow this gyre, which is the egoic structure, down. And we take a wrecking ball to some of these old beliefs and give you new beliefs to have that have been there all along in the ascended God. They're not my beliefs. They're actually all of our beliefs, because love is love. We all end up believing the same thing. Isn't that odd? We do. We all end up seeing the oneness with all life and believing that God is good, no matter what. It's certainly a privilege to do this work with you. So I say to those of you that have not done things like this before, give it a shot. You can call my company or find a company of your own that you're comfortable with. But there are some things in all of us that need to be set straight. Your life is going to be so much better because of it. The silence is comforting, enormously comforting. That's where you're going to get information so you'll know what to do. That's where you create from. That's where you love from. That's where we should talk from, work from, be from. We all slip out of it from time to time. But when you have accessed it at last, you'll go right back and set things straight and be happier. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of my lecture today, and I am delighted to talk with you. I'm delighted to be on the air. I've been gone for about 6 weeks now because we had so much to do and traveling to do and everything. We're back now, and God bless you. I hope that you all are all having happy lives, and I hope this helps you have even a happier one. Okay? By all means, check out our website, which is www.marthaburgessnovak.net. You'll find all sorts of information on the website. There are some audio things for you to listen to about where we're coming from. You'll see that I've got 2 books out. One is called The Life You Want. It's a treatise on consciousness and enlightenment through the triad of awareness and consciousness and enlightenment. We've been talking about an element of that today. And I've also got a book that's much easier to read. It's a little quote book and an oracle of sorts. It's called The Teacup Prophecies. I think you'd enjoy it. Everybody's having a lot of fun with that book. I certainly had fun writing it. And we will be back next week, next Sunday, doing the same thing again. We hope that you will call in and that you'll participate. And we thank you so much for listening. We do indeed. If you've enjoyed the show, if you will do, we have a call. That's wonderful. I am going to this call, but I want to say that if you are enjoying the show, I would so appreciate your getting this around on your social media site. That would mean a lot. Let's go to this exchange and see who we've got here. Hi, this is Martha, and I'm talking to a 541 exchange. To whom am I speaking? Hello? You there?
Hello?
Hello. Yes, what's your name? Your first name?
My name's Holly.
I'm sorry, can you tell me that again?
Holly?
Allie? Ellie? Is that right? Ellie?
It's Holly.
Holly. Oh, now I hear
Holly
it.
with it.
Yes, I got it, Holly. Holly, what can I do for you today?
You could tell me if Mark and I are going to be able to make amends if we're going to come back.
You know, Holly, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you say that one more time? You're coming and going. I don't know whether you're on a cell phone or what, but I'm getting a...
Sure. Is Mark...
Say that again? And now I've lost you completely, I'm afraid. Holly, I'm just not hearing you, and I would love to help. I tell you what, you can get on Facebook Live, Martha Burgess Novak page, and you can write me what's going on. Kat, I want to thank you very much for writing that in. That means a lot to me. Thank you. I have been missing my Sunday mornings with you, too. So, Holly, please do. I am not being able to hear you right now, and I do so want to. And you're certainly welcome to write me on the internet as well from my my page that I gave you, because I can certainly answer on that. And if it's something that I think the audience needs to hear, I won't use your name, but we'll talk about that so you can get a good and thorough answer. But I am not being able to hear you right now. You want to try it again? I think you're still on the line, are you not?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Now, all of a sudden, I'm hearing you clearly. So tell me what I can do for you.
Okay. I want to know if Mark and I are going to make amends if we're going to come back together.
If you and Mark, M-A-R-K?
Yeah.
All right. All right, let me tune into this, Holly, and let's see what we can come up with here. You know, Holly, I love to bring people together. I really do. But Mark is not in that place. He's not where you are. You would like to get together. He's not. There's something on his side that's real stuck. Do you understand what I'm saying? Holly? I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, here.
Okay.
Could you repeat that?
Yes, darling. I said that there's something that when I'm picking up both of your energies and the energy of the relationship, there's something really stuck on his side. So you're ready to make amends. You're ready to go on. He's not where you are. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
Okay. You would have to compromise too much. Some of your principles and some of what you strongly have as your integrity. He's just doesn't want to move from where he is so that you all could both come to an equitable solution and both of you compromise and give and change. He's not going to change. You understand?
Okay.
He just,
yeah, is there somebody else?
It feels like that. I could interpret the energy that way, yes. I just hate telling you that, my darling. I really do. But the very best thing for you to do is to get on with your lovely life. And you are a wonderful, lovely person that needs to get on out there and find somebody that supports you because he does not. You understand?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I'm sorry to tell you that, darling, and certainly it would be nice if I'm wrong, but I don't much think I am. Okay?
Okay.
I want you to be careful with him, though, and I would rather you pick up your life and go on and start meeting some other people and start enjoying your experience. Okay?
Okay.
All right. You know, I want to say one more thing, Holly, and that is that nobody ever leaves us high and dry. We actually are left with a bigger capacity for love. You see? You're left with a bigger capacity for love than you started out with. Now, that's a wonderful thing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's someone that is the recipient, the worthy recipient of it. This is in you. And I would rather you go out there and you find a wonderful person that can love you the way you can love. All right? Now, if Mark changes, that's great. It's just he feels real stuck and like he's not going to change. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sweetie. I hope you'll stay in touch with me, Holly, because I'd like to hear about you when you get yourself going, girl, because you shouldn't stay here for very long. Go on and have a good cry and move on, okay? Because there are other people that will love you dearly and do love you dearly, by the way, right now.
Okay.
Okay, sweetie? Lift that chin up.
Okay, thank you.
All right, darling. You take good care of your sweet self.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye. I hate giving bad news. I really do. But, that's what the energy felt like. That's all I can go with. If there are any other phone calls, I've got 24 minutes left in the show. I was going to go on and say bye-bye. But if you've got any calls to make to me, the number is 347-850-1647. And I would love to talk with you. I can only pick up what the energy is doing. I wish I could be nice and cheery, but sometimes the nice and cheery part is moving on. And that's just the way it is. And I think we are at the end of our show. I don't see any other calls, but I sure do appreciate your listening. That's just marvelous. We'll be back next week. We're not going anywhere for a long time. So, so I'll see you next Sunday, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Please do follow us, and please do share our shows. Anything that means anything to you, I'd appreciate you getting the word around, because we're trying to help here as best we can. Okay? All right. Take care of yourself. Let's do a quick prayer and just do a prayer of healing and see if some of this can be gone from your life. Okay? Dear God, who is all there is, you who are all we are, and all everything is in this world, we thank you so much. We open ourselves now to a healing as we surrender our stuckness, our issues that have somehow come up in a conscious or subconscious manner in this show. We open ourselves to a deeper level of consciousness, of peace, of silence, of the abiding God. We ask that our issues, our loneliness, our feelings of being abandoned and deserted now be given to God, that this energy may transform to something usable, something contributory and valuable to this world and to our own lives. We thank you so much, dear God, for all of this. We say our lovely prayer, knowing that these things are so for us, as we align the conscious and subconscious minds in complete agreement and alignment. We ask for 100%. This is, by the way, Lamster. I guess I should just show you because he is going all around. There is Lamster. Sorry about that. I guess he's part of a prayer too, huh? We ask now that we align the conscious and subconscious minds in complete agreement and alignment. We ask for 100% integration and communication in all chakras, in between them bodies, in between them organs, glands, and systems, in between them. We seal all miasms. We ask for a complete loosening of our issues, of our enmeshments, entrenchments of thought, feelings, or behavior, and of any repetitions of old stuff in our lives. Thank you, Lisa. Any repetitions of this old stuff in our lives. Show us new ways that we might think of ourselves and be. We ask these things now in your name, dear God, and in the name of the Ascended Masters, our love-centered guides and friends, and in the name of everybody listening to this show today. In the name, and I only know a few of you here, of Lisa and Kat and of Holly that just called. We thank you for all of this, for the perfection of this world and the journey to it. Thank you for the abiding peace within. Holly, it is supporting you. All of you, it is supporting you. We have to clear out the old cobwebs of that ego child's mind that tells us otherwise, because God is good. and God is there, and God has you. I love you all. I'll see you next week, okay? Take care now. And so it is.